Well, we are now less than a week out from Game 1 of the Championship Series. The Sydney Kings taking on the New Zealand Breakers. They've been the best two teams all season long. We've got all sorts of analysis going on. We've got so many different reasons why with all of the numbers and all of the data. But we thought we'd just tap in here a little bit to the emotive side of this Championship Series and talk to two men who, let's be honest, are very, very strong on their team. We start, of course, with the voice of the New Zealand Breakers from Sky Sports, Andrew Mulligan. Andrew, thank you for being with us. How are the preparations coming along for the Breakers?
Yeah, I think they're really enjoying this 12-day break, and I think it's given them a bit of a sigh of relief that they can refocus on just one team now and not worry about anything else, which I think is perfect.
Be honest with us. Do you like the Sydney Kings?
I do like the Sydney Kings. I got a taste of Xavier Cooks in the Sal's NBL here in New Zealand and for the Saints. And I mean, the Sydney Kings as an organisation have been really good to the Breakers the last 2 years. It's just Brad Rosen, I think, is probably their only downside of that organisation.
My wife thinks so as well.
Just have a look at him. He's sitting there, the former captain of the Sydney Kings, waiting to get involved. Brad, I can't hold you back any longer. How are you feeling about this series?
Mate, I'm angry at you. We finish on top of the ladder and you introduce Andrew first. What goes on there?
Because they're 2 hours ahead.
Well, they only got one in water last week, mate. Come on.
So, we are going to talk about this series. We're going to come at it from a bit of a different perspective, let's be honest here, because, Brad, you're going to talk very strongly about your Sydney Kings. Andrew, no one knows the Breakers better than you. I've got a timer here, 60 seconds. I'm going to ask a range of questions, and somehow I'm going to try and moderate this. I've got no idea what's going to happen next, but it is going to be fun. Brad, Kings finished on top, so we will start with you. Why is your team winning this series?
Because we're playing New Zealand. The simple answer is they have been the best team all year. They've got the best coach, best player, Xavier Cooks. And Andrew, I love that little, we like Xavier Cooks. Those games don't play here, mate. We know, all right? He might have been over in that little New Zealand playing some games over there. Mate. No. That's in the off-season where he goes to have fun. When we play the real season, he comes back to the real team, and then we go there, and he has dominated. Simon, he will be outstanding. His defense is good. And everyone keeps forgetting about that all-NBL point guard, Derek Walton Jr. Remember that bloke? Yeah, he was the all. Look for him to go and chase, kicking things, throwing things. He'll get the referees going. 3-zip. Let's move on.
Is Brad talking about Derek Walton Jr., who went 1 for 11 against the Breakers? Is that the same Derek Walton Jr.? I was just
that is the same one, the game we won. That was the one I was talking about. Yes, that one.
So I think he had a couple more shots in the game you lost, which is the most recent game. Therefore, recency bias suggests that the Breakers have markedly improved since the last time you guys won a game, which was last year, I believe. Like, that was ages ago.
The buzzer's gone.
Hang on. Last year when we... You're talking last year when we beat Tasmania, how far are we going back for the grand final?
Series. We're talking this season.
All right, sorry. I wasn't sure where we were at.
I knew this was going to be hard work for me. This is really, really hard. It's like trying to keep my kids apart right now. Andrew, why are the Breakers winning this series?
Quite simply, they are a confident, cocky unit. They absolutely love the fact they're going up against the Sydney Kings. It's very similar to when the Breakers were the target on their back when they were winning 3 in a row. Everybody wants to beat the Sydney Kings. Teams were desperate. Adam Ford said he built his team to beat the Sydney Kings. It didn't work out for the Taipans. The Breakers have much better talent, I believe, 1 through 12 than the Cairns Taipans. The Breakers just have this arrogance about them, and they will openly say, yeah, we feel as though we are the number one team. You can have your number one spot, but defensively and offensively, they are absolutely humming at the moment.
Well, I think they are a better team than Cairns. And as you said, that there is no team. Everyone builds to beat the Sydney Kings. That's why, because you can't.
The Breakers didn't build this team to beat the Sydney Kings, though. The Breakers built this team to win the championship, and that is the big difference here.
Well, I think they won the semi-finals, and that was their championship, and I'm really proud of them. Congratulations.
Andrew, while you're on a roll, who's got the bigger home court advantage in this series?
You know what? It seems like it's a fickle crowd when it comes to Kudos Bank Arena. They'll turn up for some games. Sydney is a tough market. I mean, I can just see, as a New Zealand sports fan, you just look at the way the NRL dominates your papers. The football gets a look in every now and again. Basketball will get some coverage, but that's because you've got great journos who will push the agenda. I feel as though Kudos Bank Arena will come out for game one, and then probably they won't come back again. And the Breakers will pick up the next 3-4 games. If they drop one in New Zealand, it doesn't really matter. They come into game 5 and they're going to win. They're going to win the whole thing as the Spark Arena crowd will lift them in game 2. That is for sure. And then they'll get a sniff for game 4.
Look, I got to agree with you, Andrew. I think the crowd in New Zealand are great, all 7 of them. I think they will make an absolutely massive noise. I think they're great. But when you talk about the Kings, look, I agree with you. I mean, they had an awful crowd the other day. I think they got 8,000. I mean, it was shocking, and on a day that we didn't expect. But, they've been really bad this year. I think they've averaged over 11,000. We had 14,000 at one game. They're talking about 16,000 coming up. So, look, I agree with you. They're so fickle. They just don't want to come out, all 5 million of them.
Gee, what was that word we were saying before? Arrogance? Jeez, there's some arrogance going on right now. Round 16 was a big win for the New Zealand Breakers. They beat Sydney in Kudos Bank Arena. Brad, does it mean much?
I can't even remember the game, but we'll talk about it as
I'm pretty sure you were there.
I think I was. Look, it was a great win by New Zealand playing against a team that weren't playing because they knew they'd locked up top spots. So I think it was a really, really good effort for them. And I love how Chase, spoke in the post conference. He probably didn't say it the way I heard it, but it was along the lines of, look, we didn't really care about today, and we wanted New Zealand to win because we wanted to play them in the grand final and not get second spot. But look, I think it's fabulous. I think it makes New Zealand, think that they're good, and all the best to them, and hopefully they come in with that cockiness, which they won't have, and we look forward to seeing them and going back to New Zealand 1-0.
Andrew, your response?
Yeah, that game was really impressive for several factors. Just that Tim Suarez is still wandering around no man's land. Wondering what happened to Will McDowell-White's floater game when he ran in 6 floaters in that game. Xavier Cooks knew the writing was on the wall, that the reigning champs were now going to be foregone conclusion to the Breakers' footnote of lifting the trophy in March. And I feel as though that game really gave the Breakers the confidence they need to win this championship series. It really is going to be down to that game, because game 1 in New Zealand at Spark Arena was a 22-point lead until Xavier Cooks went off with an ankle injury. Game 2, I don't even remember it. I think the Sydney Kings won, Brad. You probably remember that game.
Oh, I do. They did.
Yeah, game 3 was critical, absolutely critical for the confidence. The Breakers got a sniff. The first 2 games, I think a lot of people were like, it's Sydney season. They're head and shoulders, but now they're not. And that game gave them a lot of confidence. Winning in Kudos Bank Arena in front of that fickle Sydney crowd.
All 14,000 of them, I hear you.
Listen, you two are just starting to get a little bit nasty now, I think. Andrew.
Much love, Andrew.
Much love, Brad.
You sure about that? Andrew, number 1 offensive team in the competition, the Sydney Kings. They score more points per game than anyone else, but the New Zealand Breakers deny teams better than anyone else. So we've got the number 1 scoring team versus the number 1 defensive team. What suits a championship series more?
It's defense. Defense wins championships. This Breakers team is predicated on a defensive intensity I haven't seen since Cedric Jackson was at the point and just being that point guard that they needed and just being so dialed in. I went out to a preseason game. The first game, they did it behind closed doors and they absolutely smacked up the Illawarra Hawks. And this was coming off the back of 2 COVID seasons. And their attitude was insane. It was like, I've never seen a Breakers team talk like this. And I feel as though they're getting wound up by Brad Rosen. I won't go through all 28 games of the regular season, Brad, don't worry, nor the preseason. But defense wins championships, and the Breakers' defense is dialed in on every possession, and that is crucial to winning the finals.
That is one thing I'm going to agree with you, Andrew. I think their defense is outstanding. It took them to purchase a Sydney Kings player in Tom Vodanovic to do that, and I can accept that because he got taught how to play to defense. But I think it's good, and I think what that will do is really make the Kings have to work for their scores, and we might win by 10 or 12, not the 15 or 20 that we expect.
I'm going to change tact here and try and get you to say something nice about the opposition team because it hasn't worked so far. Brad, who is New Zealand's most important player?
Oh, of course, the Sydney boy, Will McDowell-White. Who else could it be? No, I will joke there.
Isn't that the one you guys let go? Wasn't he a DP for you guys? He didn't see it for him?
I know. Drewy did that, actually, so we can talk to Drewy. And that was, I heard in the press conference, give another team a go. So let's go with New Zealand. Look, for me, I think Will's great, but it's obviously Barry Bound Jr. I've loved what he's done this year. He has been so good. In fact, one would argue they are the three best imports combination in the league. There is no question with what they've done. All three contribute in so many different ways, but productive in different ways. And maybe Cairns, but I go through the other imports and go, no one gives as much as them. So for me, Barry Brown Jr., the way he finishes games has been outstanding. So without a doubt, he is the biggest key.
See, you can do it. You can say something nice about the Breakers.
Mate, I tell you, I'm sweating having to say that. It hasn't come across well.
Andrew, what about you?
It's obviously Xavier Cooks. You need to pick him up well before halfway, and if he's got the ball, he can create just off the dribble anywhere, especially he gets those elbow catches in the mid-range game. He is just absolutely lethal going either way. Sometimes going right, but going left. It's incredible to watch. I think the way that the Breakers will defend that will be the key to winning this. You can let Xavier Cooks get his points, but he creates for others, and he just gives them so much confidence. I think the Sydney Kings probably need to have Kevin Lish in one corner and Daniel Kickett in the other, and that's the only way that they're going to beat the Breakers' defence. You're going to spread the floor out.
We can manage that. We can do that. We can talk.
Kev still looks in fantastic, Nick. Talk about your own team then. Not necessarily the best player. Who's the X Factor player for your team coming into this series?
Well, I'll start there. It's DJ. He's one of those players. We saw what he can do throughout the year, having 10 threes, but then you look back at Tasmania and the Daggers. When he gets going, if he knocks that first one down, he could knock 7 in a row. And I thought Cairns did an outstanding job on him, giving what they can do. New Zealand have the capability of doing that, but if he gets going, then you've got guys like Andrew was saying with Zabe doing what he's doing, Simon in the open break, then you've got Derek Walton Jr. not going 1 of 11, he'll go better, and you look at everything that's going on. So for me, DJ is that type of player that you don't say often. When he's on, the Sydney Kings don't lose. When he's rolling, they never lose. They can win without him if he's not playing well, as been shown, but they never lose when he's on. So that's the key to me.
Yeah, I feel as though if DJ Vasiljevic gets off, it will be quite surprising because the Breakers have defended the three-point line really well. The X-Factor player for the Breakers, you know what? I'm just going to have to put it down to Tom Abercrombie's defense. You can look at Will McDowell-White and Isaiah Liafa and what they do at the point. Liafa just loves to absolutely bump guys on the ball. And that defense, well, it's interesting to see how they'll let that go because both teams like to play physical on-ball defense. But Tom Abercrombie, he hasn't shot the ball particularly well, but he's dialed in defensively, and that's been his focus. We've seen him over the last few seasons guard 1 through 5, and that will be the difference. It's whoever's going to get off. Will he pick Zave up at half court? Will he get on Vasiljevic? Will he run through those screens? That length and that athleticism will come to the fore. That's my X factor.
Let's finish with one more, and we'll start with you, Andrew, because Brad started because he got a little bit annoyed that I introed you first, and he was. We hadn't even started, and he was getting a little bit precious already. Andrew, who is the better story if they were to win the championship series?
It's without a doubt, it has to be the New Zealand Breakers. And I think there's even a little bit of Brad Rosen in that cold, dark heart of his from the Sydney Kings era. I think he would agree. Like, for a lot of Breakers fans, Auckland is like you ordered Sydney off Wish. You think you want a nice big city, but you know what? You get Auckland. We've got a bridge. We've got a tower. It's not quite. We got Kudos Bank Arena, but it's half the size. It's a lovely town. It really is. It's our city, but geez, Breakers fans are back, and I'm all about them getting back on the bandwagon. The Breakers organisation, when they changed, and I'm going to waffle here a little bit, disindulge me, they went away from what worked with a connection to that fan base. They learnt lessons in COVID, not just basketball lessons, but fan engagement lessons. Doesn't help being in another country, but they've reconnected. And for me personally, all everybody wants to talk about is how the Breakers are going. Are they going to win? And this hasn't happened for 10 years. Even in 2015, it didn't kind of happen. In 2016, it didn't happen. But that three-peat captured the imagination, and that love for that team is back. It's awesome.
Jack, are you listening to this? Are you listening to this? A few minutes ago, we're cocky, we've got this, we're going to take Xavier down. And now he's like, oh, please love the little brother. Please love the little brother. We want them to win. Man, I don't listen to any of that crap. That's all it is. Oh, what a great story it will be. A great story is when a team comes from last and finishes second last. That's the great story of New Zealand, right? We don't want to know anything about that. The Kings to win. If New Zealand win, what will that mean? Sydney will go, okay, when does it start again? No one in the league will know. They won't care. Perth will go, who won? Brisbane are going to go, oh, God, I got to come. No, it is Sydney Kings winning because that's what the NBL needs. That's what we all need. We don't need that team across the Tasman doing what they did. We got the same question we got last year. Do we want Tasman? Defend the island. Give it a break. Come on, man. It's none of that. It is the Sydney Kings because we are the powerhouse of the NBL.
So endearing, Jack. Doesn't that just warm the cockles of your heart?
Yeah, I feel like listening to Brad, I'm almost going for New Zealand now after hearing all of that.
You and everyone else outside of Sydney.
This has played out exactly the way that I thought it was. Boys, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Best of luck to your own teams because I know you're not going to wish each other luck, so I may as well do it for you. And thanks for chatting to us today.
I do want to wish you all the best in commentary, Jack. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, have a good call, Jack. Enjoy that.